All right, folks, so it is 10:57. We are going to get started with our next session in just about 3 minutes. It's going to focus on the marketing track this morning, create brand materials for free. Welcome if you're just joining us. And if you've been on this morning, welcome back as well. Please transition back with us here on Zoom. I'm going to stop screen sharing here briefly so that our instructor, Supo, can introduce himself and get started with the workshop today. So again, we'll get started in just a couple minutes. Feel free to transition back and welcome, and thank you all for being here.
Perfect. Well, hi everybody. My name is Supo. So thank you for being here today. If you were here for Steve's presentation earlier, I had the pleasure of having Steve as my instructor for my 8 weeks business basics course with Ventures. And let me tell you, I mean, I learned more during that 8 weeks than my entire 4 years at UW in their business program over there. So highly recommend attending more of Steve's workshop if you get a chance in the future. So, you know, thank you for coming. I know it's a Monday morning, but the weather's out great, and thank you for coming to educate yourself about how to be a better business owner. So during today's presentation, I'll be sharing some tips and tricks for crafting your business's brand with really simple online tools that are best of all free. So we don't have a lot of time today, so let's jump right in. Like I said, if you're just kind of moseying your way back in, my name is Supo. I graduated from Ventures Business Basics course back in winter of 2019. Just like you all, I'm a fellow business owner myself. I run a company called Sidekick, which is sort of a meta business where we help fellow business owners thrive by providing everything that people, business owners like yourselves, don't have the time or skill for. So our business is right now going through some changes, but we're currently offering our main services include, marketing, tech, marketing, tech, bookkeeping, and virtual assistant services. So at Ventures, this past year and a half, 2 years, I now regularly teach tech and marketing tips for business owners. So today you'll be benefiting from the advice, guidance, and the resources I usually provide to our Sidekick clients, but also through firsthand experience of, I would say, mostly failing forward on over 16 projects at this point. So a lot of battle scars to share with you as well. So for today, what is branding, right? So I usually describe branding to clients as the art of crafting your robot baby. And what I mean by that is the coolest thing for me personally about building a business is that a business is a blank slate, right? So you start with nothing, and then through the sheer force of will and sometimes sweat and hopefully minimal amounts of blood and tears, you create something new for the world. So when you're crafting your brand or your robot baby, you can decide on, what exactly would this baby look like, right? So in business terms, that would mean your visual assets. So what are your color schemes, your logo, your fonts? You get to decide all of that. How about, what personality would this baby have, right? So that would be most likely your business's tone, right? Whether that's, hardcore, swearing like a sailor type of thing. All the way to very professional and polite and very straight edge. So that including, your values, your policies, your return policy, how generous is that, your lifetime warranty if you want to offer that, your service level agreements. In this day and age, you might want to add what social movements are you backing, what types of things, social policies do you support, and lastly, how would this baby communicate, right? What channels would this business of yours communicate? So whether that's through social media, videos, handwritten notes. So you get to decide all of that as the business owner. So just keep in mind that as small business owners, you really most likely don't have a dedicated marketing team. And that's partially why you're here today. So I would say that your robot baby should ideally somewhat resemble you, because most likely you are your business a lot of times, right? So the alignment between your personal brand and your business's brand is going to make things a lot easier for you to live and breathe your business day in and day out, right? Because the more different that if your business is an opposite personality from you, then it would be almost like living a double life from time to time. So we'll be focusing mostly on the visual assets for today, but I would like to share kind of a little worksheet in case you would like to dive in deeper to build the core of your brand. Let me share this in the chat real quick. All right, cool. I think this worksheet really helps just solidify and get you thinking about what type of brand you are building completely from scratch. Great. So the idea for branding and the biggest idea I hope that you take from today is that you want your branding to be cohesive. Right? So for instance, let's take a look at Seattle's favorite local burger chain, Dick's Burgers. There we go. So as you can tell, kind of their orange and blue as their color scheme is really in everything they do. You know, the color scheme even carries into their wrappers, right? So the wrappers are different shades of this yellow-orange type of deal. Their T-shirts orange, their cups is both orange and blue and white. So a lot of their branding carries all throughout. Same with their fonts. Their fonts are the same on their sign on the street, to their sign above the store, to their cups, to their packaging. Everything is pretty much the same. So big brands, Dick's is not that big, but pretty much larger brands really have what's called a brand style guide, which summarizes your brand for everyone from the internal team, so your employees, your marketing department, so on and so forth, all the way to external parties. So maybe that's the press and the media, your vendors, contractors, and most importantly, your customers. But as small business owners, you know, we are all strapped for time and strapped for cash, right? So I would recommend just putting together a very simple Google Doc where you dump all the stuff, all the different components into one easy reference point for you to kind of refer back to down the road. It doesn't need to be pretty, right? But this simple document will really help keep everyone grounded, because it will help make it easy for other people to access this information later on, and most importantly for you to access it later on as you are building more marketing materials for your business. So let me share a few links in the chat about example brand style guides from the bigger companies to kind of help you get a sense of what everything looks like. And don't worry, by the way, about writing everything down. You can, of course, copy and save it, but also I think the ventures team will be posting this and sending this out as a recap down the road as well. So happy to share this again down the road. But there will be a lot of resources for today because there's a lot of good information out there. Great, perfect. So just like Dick's and the larger companies, what do you think about once you take a look at these brand style guides is that the components of it is the same, whether or not you're, you know, a multinational company, all the way down to a one-person shop. So the parts of it is really not that different from the bigger guys out there. So today we'll be kind of focusing more on the tools that you need to decide on your color scheme, how to select your fonts and your font pairings, and last but not least, also how to create a logo. So let's start with choosing your color scheme. And as you know, different colors have different connotations, which can vary based on context and culture and so many other different individual factors. So this is where I usually like to remind clients about the concept of the robot baby, right? If the business is you, then your robot baby should resemble you. So you might as well go with, if you get too overwhelmed with trying to decide, oh, what is the right connotation, all of this, go with what feels right. Or the simplest thing is choose your favorite color, right? And just go with it. So, whatever you believe is right for your business, go with it, regardless of what this little chart and this little table say for the connotation of the red and the purple and the yellow. Just go with what you like. So here are some examples of the major brands, the logos from the major brands that are grouped by colors. And as you can tell, even though these logos are really small, you can still recognize them from very far away. And we're going to talk about the simplicity of logos in just a tad bit, but just keep that in mind as you're kind of going through this process. The tool I like to use for crafting your color scheme is called Coolers, and it's free. So let me share that link right now, and I'm actually going to share what that looks like as well. So I'm going to switch to sharing a different screen real quick. Let me switch to one more screen. Come on. Perfect. All right. So we are gonna see this. Boop, boop, one more. Perfect. Okay. Okay. Let me share. Okay, this is what coolers look like. So this is the homepage. You land on here, and how I like to get started when I'm choosing a new color palette is I don't really have an eye for color, so I like to see what other people really like in terms of their palette. So I usually explore trending palettes, and that would take you to this page right here. And this page is, kind of, you can scroll through and see what are trending right now, and choose something that just speaks to you and your brand, right? So I have actually used this one for a past project before, and you will click on it, just three dot down, open in the generator, and then it would actually pop up something like this. Come on, here we go. So this is the page that you will land on. And suppose you like this color scheme already, great. You can just export right here, click export, and then copy the URL, dump it into your brand style guide document, copy the code, dump it in. So these are the codes that you may need for building a website and other online platforms. Copy this, paste it there. You can also, I recommend just exporting as an image so that you have a reference point later on of what exactly do these colors look like, because I'm assuming you can't just look at the code and imagine the colors. So all of these are really simple to use, and I recommend just exporting all these different aspects and dumping it into your brand style guide. But suppose you don't like all of these colors, right? Suppose you like, say, this yellow and this blue. So what you can do is you can lock these two, and you can actually press the space bar as they show you kind of little instructions up here. Press the space bar to generate color palettes. So suppose I like these two. I'm just going to press the space bar because I want to switch out all these three different other colors. So the algorithm on the back end would actually then calculate other potential colors that would be a good fit for these two colors. And maybe I still don't like, I'm not a huge fan of pink usually. So you just keep on pressing, ooh, I like this a bit more, maybe a very earthy tones. So once you have this, then you export, and then so on and so forth. So you can start with a trending palette, but then you can definitely make it your own down the road. And let me switch back to our presentation. So that's Coolers for you. Super easy to use, free, great to experiment with it a little bit. Great. So we're back to the presentation. So that that process is super easy. It should take you, once you get the hang of it, should take you maximum of 15 minutes deciding something you like. Export, save it, you're good to go. Right. Next up, you're going to spend some time choosing your fonts. So choosing the right typeface, I would say, is more of an art than a science, even more than colors. So a few tips when you're going about choosing your typeface is that I would prioritize uh, it, making it easy to read and keeping it as minimalistic as possible, because you'll want to use these fonts from large size mediums such as, you know, a giant poster or a banner. Maybe you're at the farmer's market, you know, a giant banner, but you also want it to scale all the way down to your customer's tiny phone screen. So you don't want something that may be like super cursive, or something that's really hard to read, because that's going to be hard to scale up and down. Number two, I would say stick with 2 to 3 fonts at most. Maybe one for your logo, one for your heading, one for your subheading, um, maybe one for your text. But once you start getting above like 4, you start to dilute the power of your typography, because the viewers start to get confused about which fonts really represent your brand. So if you're stuck on this process, and there's so many fonts out there, I would say start by looking at some inspiration, or look at what your competitors are doing or other people in your industry, and then go from there. And I will be sharing a few links in just a few minutes to help kind of get you started on this process, because there are really a lot of fonts out there. But the tool I like to use the most for choosing your typeface is Google Fonts. Um, and the reason for that is because it's available on most platforms, not just Google, but most pretty much almost every web browser recognizes it now. And then also a lot of the website building tools that you use will have Google Fonts already automatically integrated into their platform. So it's going to be pretty easy to choose a Google font and then use it everywhere. The only caveat is um, some site builders uh, have just their own set of fonts, so you might be stuck with that. So a good example of that might be Square's online website platform. Their platform, I think, still is limited to only a small handful of certain fonts. So you might get stuck there, but by and large, Google Fonts is widely adopted. So let me show you what Google Fonts kind of look like, but let me drop the link into the chat real quick. Super easy to use. I mean, that's Google's trying to take over the world, so they're trying to make it as easy as possible to use. So, fonts.google.com, and let me show you what that really looks like on our end. Once you get there, okay, here we go. So Google Fonts could be, let me new share. And going back to this page. All right, perfect. So once you're here, easy to navigate around. You have so many different fonts. Sometimes it might be best to just sort by trending and see what else other people are using out there. You could test out an example, test model to see just what the wording that you use, what would that look like? You can put in A, B, Z, the entire alphabet to see how that would space out. But pretty easy to use from there. So let me switch back. Sure, great. So once you have decided on a particular font, of course, screenshot it, save the URL, save the name of the font, so that you have easy access later on. And as I promised, here are quite a few resources. Since there are so many ways to choose fonts, here are a few resources for choosing your font pairings. There are quite a few awesome designers who have already curated the giant list of Google fonts down to some really awesome stuff. So like I said, choose whatever feels best for your business, but just as long as you prioritize the ability for the viewer to easily read the font, there's nothing to say that you can go wrong with a particular font. Maybe Comic Sans, but I think Comic Sans gets a lot of hate. There's a time and place for every font, I would say. Great. So now that we have your color scheme and your font selected out, we can start thinking about how to create a professional looking logo. So the biggest advice I tell clients when trying to design their first logo is keep your logo as simple as possible. The trick I use when I'm creating a new logo is I actually get up from my chair from my desk, pull the logo up, on my computer screen, get and get up from my chair, and step as far away from the computer as possible. So if I can recognize my logo on the screen from the other side of the room, it's a pretty good logo, right? But then you might ask, like, what happens if you want to use, say, like, for example, you want to use my last name as your business name, right? 13 letters long. It's a huge, huge, huge block of text, right? How do you actually make that recognizable from really far away? So this is where the final component that we haven't talked about comes in, which is a logo mark. So logo mark is simply an icon that is a part of your full logo, but could also stand alone without the name of your business as well. So a good example of that is, the McDonald's golden arches, right? You can see that from far, far away without the name McDonald's, and you recognize it's McDonald's. Of course, they're a huge multinational company, and they have pushed that image on the public for quite some time. But another more recent example to the Seattle scene is the Seattle Kraken, right? The S that they do, the stylized S that they do, which is, for me, I think it's a really cool design. Um, you can also just see that and recognize that it's a Kraken without even knowing the name of the Kraken, right? So as long as you are able to associate the name with your logo mark, so your word mark with your logo mark, that's a great way to start building a very strong brand. So as small business owners, right, we don't have a designer usually on staff to design this beautiful logo. So a good way to get started is simply choosing a free icon and using that as your logo. A resource I recommend for that is something called, there's quite a few directory out there, but I personally use something called Flaticon, um, or Flat Icon, depending on how you split up the word. So what that looks like here, let me drop that link real quick. Um, what that looks like is this right here. Let's see, new share desktop. Great. So what that kind of looks like is this. So a website that you can search so many different stuff. So maybe, for example, we want to search chef. So um, all of these, so these are ads up here, but down here are everything that you can use. So like I said, choose something as simple as possible. So something like super colorful like this probably wouldn't work because the further away you are, the harder it is to recognize this blob. But maybe something like this might work, right? Maybe as simple as this. Maybe you're starting a bakery and a chef. I mean, that looks like both a loaf of bread and a chef's hat. So you can definitely play around with that, search different keywords, and once you're ready to go, you click on it. Download it in multiple formats, multiple sizes. I would say download it in a different style, because you want as much flexibility as possible when you are going to build out your logo in the future. So let me go back to our screen. So like I said, download it, save the URL, save the info in your style guide as always. And as you can kind of tell, we're starting to layer things on top of each other. Next up, we're going to stylize your business name. So we're going to create your word mark, and we're going to go back to Google Fonts for this. And the reason for that is because one, it's free, and two, let me show you kind of a quick and dirty tip for creating your logo mark without a lot of effort. This takes you like 5 minutes to do. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna go back to Google. Let me pull that back up. So you're gonna go back to Google and say, let me share this screen instead. Say you like this particular. No, I don't like Nodo very much. So maybe we're looking for. Doop, boop, boop, boop. Here, suppose for example here we'll go with, you know, Roboto is always very well used. So why don't we do that? Nice and easy to read, big, not super pretty. It's very common, I would say. What I usually do is I would type my business name. So maybe we're going with, I don't know, Ventures today, right? Ventures. The trick is, if it loads, there we go. The trick is make it really big, right? As big as you can. And then you're going to, let me switch back to the daylight mode. And what you're going to do is you're just going to screenshot this. Take a screenshot. Boom. Okay. And then you're going to copy, download, save it to your guide. You might want to crop this a little bit, right? To make sure it's even on all sides. Make it nice and tight. Crop it, and you're good to go. You know, like always, save the font name, save the screenshot to your brand style guide, save the URL so you can always refer back to it later. But you know, download this, copy it, save it. Voila, 3 minutes and you have your word mark. Super easy to do. Great. So let me kind of go back so that we can have a way to ground ourselves. Once you have your logo mark, so your icon and your word mark, you know, once you get the hang of it, this takes you, 30 minutes at most if you're a little undecisive, but it is pretty quick. You just combine both of them into Canva. And you probably have heard of Canva. They've been around for a few years. They're one of my favorite designing tools for small businesses because it is one of the easiest things to use, and things actually, Canva has just done a really good job at creating beautiful templates and an easy to use platform for people who are not really designers. So really easy to use. I'm going to drop the link as always in the chat. And what that looks like, I mean, honestly, this presentation here was also created on Canva. So pretty easy. What that looks like is you're going to go into, there we go. Create an account. It's all free. You can upgrade, of course, but the beginning stuff is free. I use the free version. So let me share this option with you. Okay, so you kind of come down to all of your designs. These are stuff that I've done in the past before. And then you open up kind of a logo version. So maybe a square page. They have a logo option for you if you want to create a logo. And then you just combine, your word mark that you screenshotted from Google Fonts, your icon that you created, from the flat icon. You just combine the two and you just start, experimenting around with different layouts. And ideally you create multiple layouts, maybe one with just your logo mark, some with just your word mark, some with both, some next to each other, different colors, so on and so forth. And the reason for that is because you want to create all of these different versions upfront, because as you know, different platforms these days require different dimensions and different requirements really that would fit well with that particular platform. So for example, Instagram the best option is probably not your entire word mark because they have kind of a circular type of format, so it might get cut off. So you might want to just have just your logo mark, your icon as your main one. Whereas maybe something bigger like um, a Facebook cover photo, then you probably have the ability to put in your entire logo if you want. Same with maybe you're creating a letterhead, maybe you want to create the whole thing, or maybe you just want the word mark on it and leave out the logo mark. Great. So let me share with you some resources also for some free resources for just creating the different colors to add to your screen. Add to your logo, because there are a few tools I like to use for not only changing the colors of your word mark and logo mark, but also there's another tool called remove.bg, or remove background, to remove the background of your logo to make it transparent, because sometimes you don't want a white background always, right? So let me drop that in the chat real quick as well. Great. So once you save it, I would say save multiple formats like I was saying. So transparent background, icon only, black and white, square, rectangular. So once you have all of that, save it to maybe a folder next to your in your Google Drive, next to your um, brand style guide, so that it's easy to refer back to down the road. And this is something that I personally do myself as well. I have a folder next to my brand style guide with just a bunch of logos for that particular project or particular company. And then it's super easy for me to be like, oh, I'm kind of now switching to signing up for DoorDash. So therefore, I would now need to kind of go back into the folder, find the right logo, and then just uploading it, rather than doing this whole process over again for every single platform that you encounter. You might as well do this heavy lifting work upfront. So this might take you another maybe hour if you're kind of just new to it, but it is relatively quick as well. And this is just the beginning, right? So these steps, like you saw with kind of that ventures example on Canva, creates a kind of a pretty like clean, professional looking photo, but it is definitely not not going to win any awards, right? And the logo is, to somebody who might care a lot about design, it might be a little mediocre, right? But I would say, as small business owners, don't get bothered by that, right? Just get a logo, get your brand up, get your color scheme up, and just go. There are bigger things about your business that is worth your time more than just crafting the perfect brand. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter as long as you have something up and you start to have the market or your customers associate those colors, those fonts, your logo with what your brand is. But I would say don't get hold up by, oh man, it's not perfect. There are bigger things to focus on, definitely. And I would also like to say that this is only a beginning, because hopefully as your business grows, you will get to a point where you would just hire somebody to do this down the road. But it is important to start putting this very fundamental portion of your business to work as early as possible, so that you can at least start that association with your brand, I would say. So at the end of this process, your brand style guide should include your color scheme, your fonts, and your logo. Um, so moving forward, these three fundamental visual components can and really should be used on everything that your company produces. So that includes your website, right? All the way to your packaging, to your invoices, to your business cards, so on and so forth, because you really want to start building that brand and that association that your customer will have with all these different components. So as your business grows, you continue to evolve this and refine it. And like Disney has gone through multiple iterations of their their brands from the beginning, and same with like Shell, right? Multiple different, but the DNA still stays the same. So it's important for you as a business owner to start thinking about this very early on, because as your team grows, you want everybody to be grounded in your vision, and simply just improve upon that down the road. So at the end of the day, I wish you guys all a lot of success on your business journey. This is an exciting time to be a business owner, especially given how many tools there are out there that are free, to create some really cool stuff. And I wish you all the best. So thank you for attending the workshop today. It looks like we have about, I think about around 15, maybe 20 minutes for questions. So feel free to drop some questions in the chat or come off mute. Otherwise, I can also be reached via email or LinkedIn. So let me kind of drop my information and contact info into the chat as well if you want to save that and get in touch with me down the road. I'm happy to always chat more things. Great. So yes, any questions? Happy to help. And if we don't have questions, I have other stuff out my sleeve as well. But I would like to at least have some room for any questions that you guys might have. Let me stop sharing as well. Ooh, a little bright. Great.
I have a question. It might be more like a tech question. So
yes, go ahead, Mari. I do both. So
yeah, so you gave us this resource for removing the background.
Mm-hmm.
And I just tried with my logo that was made by somebody else, but it says the image resolution is too high and I can't do it. Is there website that you know how to go from high to low? Because normally it's high.
Yeah.
It's a little high. So now I'm like high to low.
Right. Yes. I mean, I think there's a lot of tools out there to reduce your resolution, but you're right, Mari. Like a lot of times you want to keep it as high as possible, but it might mean that you just have a really big logo right now. And a lot of times if you're trying to make something transparent, you don't usually need, like usually it's for a website of some sort, right? So you don't need that high of a resolution, and it might actually benefit you to reduce it down so that your logo would load faster on those websites.
Yes, yeah.
So yeah, there are definitely tools. Just a simple Google searches. I know for sure there's quite a lot of tools out there for reducing your logo. It's harder to go the other way, but reducing your resolution is pretty easy.
Okay, I'll look into it. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. Anybody else? Let's see, somebody coming through chat. Well, thank you, Chantel. And Mari, that's also, or Chantel, I mean, you guys are speaking up. I mean, I'm happy to kind of maybe tell us a bit more about your business, and any particular needs. We can definitely go into like maybe a live example as well, is one way that we can take the rest of the time. Another one I would to share with you all, since you all are sticking around for the whole workshop, is a lot of times what I take a look at for small business owners is that a lot of times small business owners end up using their @gmail.com or @hotmail.com email address, which it's pretty good when you're very, very small, but as you're trying to contact vendors and appear more professional, you ideally want an @yourdomainname.com type of email address, right? But Google is really expensive for at least a small business owner to subscribe to, especially off the bat. I think it's last time I checked, it was like $6 a month or $12 a month, something along those lines for the Google upgrade for the business suite. So what I usually use and what a lot of Sidekicks clients end up switching to is a website. It's another email provider called Zoho. And I'm going to drop that link in the chat box. So Zoho is, I believe, an India-based company. And they are essentially almost not a copycat of Google, but they have a lot of the amenities and the features that Google provides, including a mail feature. So that's what we use at Sidekick. That's what I've switched my parents to for years now. So they're a pretty stable company, and they allow you to actually create an email account at your domain name.com for free. Or if you decide to upgrade down the road, and that simply you probably want to do that if you're trying to just add other team members into it. Actually, even team members, I think it actually goes, Zoho allows you to do up to, I think, 3 or 4 accounts or something along those lines for free. So you can add team members, and up to a certain point, you might want to upgrade for other features and maybe security features and so on and so forth. If you do, it's still really cheap. It's like $12 a year, I think. And that's what Sidekick is on right now. So highly recommend Zoho if you're trying to upgrade your email and your branding, because it makes you look a lot more professional when you're doing at your domain-name.com rather than at google.com. So another tip and trick right there that I usually tell a lot of clients, because it's one of the things that I feel like it's so easy to do, but I think it just gets expensive if you try to go with the bigger guys out there.
I have a question. Do you have to link your domain to Zoho to have your email account?
Great question, right? So what you would do, and Zoho would take you through the wizard for this, but you just need to connect your domain name to Zoho. You don't need to transfer it to Zoho. So if you have your domain name on GoDaddy or Namecheap or whatever, that's what we do as well. Like my domain name, like for Sidekick, and all my personal domain names are all on Namecheap, and then you just change the DNS so that it points and connects to Zoho, or connects to your website, or connects to your hosting. So you don't need to move your domain.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yep. Cool. Anything else? Any other questions? And Mari, I mean, what is your business? I'm curious to hear more about what you do.
I'm gonna open a bilingual preschool.
Oh, cool. What languages?
Spanish and English.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. And are you already in the running, or kind of just in the planning stages?
I'm just waiting for this pandemic to kind of open up a little bit, vaccine, because it hit really hard to the educational field. So this year I focused on building the business, the legal part, the physical space. So I already created a website, a logo. I use a tool. Maybe I don't know if I can share where I did my logo for very cheap.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what I tell clients when I teach classes as well. I'm like, sometimes you guys know really cool tools that I haven't heard of. So yeah, feel free to drop it in the chat. I think other people would love to hear it as well.
I think it's Fiverr.com. I think this is what it is. I put it there. Let me double check the spelling.
Yeah, Fiverr. Did you get kind of? Yeah.
Let me see. So I did my logo there. Oh no, you spelled it wrong, I believe.
I think there's 2 R's, I believe.
Yeah, it's Fibber. Yes, sorry. So
yeah.
That's what I did. My logo, my website, for a decent price to start, and I was able to work with them. They are I think they're in the Middle East, so finding the right time to communicate with them was a little challenging.
Yeah.
That was fun. So it was pretty cheap and pretty to fit. Like they did a good job. I did my website, but they fixed it to make him look more professional. So that was very helpful. So yeah.
So can I ask a question real quickly?
Yes. Yeah. Go ahead, Gail.
So on Zoho.com, if I'm understanding correctly, because right now everything's going through GoDaddy, and I have 4 people working with me. So I have, like you said, the email accounts for them. So it's all coming from one place. But it's like $160 or $120 a year per person.
Oh,
so
wow.
Understanding you correctly, I can keep my domain name, everything with GoDaddy, and then go and give them an email address through Zoho for no cost.
Correct. Yes. So Zoho, let me kind of see. because GoDaddy is one of the most, I think Zoho might even have a specific support document for GoDaddy. But yeah, so you will keep your domain name with whoever you are with.
Okay.
Oh, here we go. Let me kind of share this. They have a specific, Zoho has a support document for that actually. So yes, so you will sign up for Zoho and then you would actually just connect. So you keep your domain name with GoDaddy, and then change your DNS, and Zoho will kind of take you through all of that. And you just connect the two, and then from now on, you and your team will be logging into Zoho Mail to access your email instead of whatever you're using right now.
Okay, so, okay, and I'm not gonna lose any connectivity, no, it's just gonna be seamless, right?
Yes, well, I mean, I like to always say that, you know, no technology is super seamless, so always have a plan B.
Yeah,
But
so-
so I would
Let
do
me
it like,
ask,
oh, go ahead.
no, just a follow-up question.
Yeah.
So how much of a conflict would it make if I continue to have one of them, like Gail at junebucksauce.com, if I keep that with GoDaddy and then set up one with Zoho just for a while, just to see how it works, would that cause a lot of issues?
I think it might, and the reason
Okay.
for that, I mean, double check for that, because I've never kind of actually like done a split like that. But from my understanding, at least when we talk to our team that does all of this, is that when you connect the two, you're actually changing the way that the email is routed.
Okay.
So an email that's coming into your @domainname.com is now, instead of routing to your current inbox, it will actually be routed to a different, you change what's called the MX record. It will be changed to now Zoho. So I recommend like actually doing it maybe everything like this, a low business time. So maybe during the weekends, if most of your email comes in during the week, so that it is as least disruptive as possible.
Okay. Okay. So I'm so sorry, I don't mean to take over.
Oh,
Just one more
no.
question.
But I think more people, oh, well, one thing I also want to mention, Gail, like if you want to test it out, maybe you have a spare domain name that you might want to test out first to just see what the Zoho platform is like, connect that domain name. And then once you kind of get comfortable with it, then connect your real domain name. So I'm not sure if you have something to spare, but I think this might help other folks as well. So keep on asking questions.
Shoot, it went out of my head.
Oh, no.
Oh, I know what the question was. Sorry.
Yes.
So, so do we get to schedule some time with you as well as we do with other ventures, instructors? So so when I get ready to do that, because I'm about that much technically inclined, so
no problem.
So can we work through that, at least getting one of them set up so that I can understand how it works?
Yes. So this year in particular, I know thanks to Amy and the team, yes, if you are a part of Ventures, you can reach out directly to me, and I'll, of course, loop in Amy. And yes, you can schedule a time with me this year as well. So I've been meeting with a few folks throughout the year, but this is exactly what I'm here for. So kind of tech and marketing and digital type of things is what I'm here for. So if you're already through the Ventures course, I am more than happy to meet, and you have my contact info in the chat.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, cool.
Ooh, my budget just went up.
Well, this is the great thing about Ventures. I mean, I love being both a client and an instructor. It's like being a client, like just the team does a really great job at supporting small business owners like us, right? But I look forward to reconnecting, Gail.
Okay, perfect. I'm excited. Thank you.
Likewise. Great. Well, we have about 2 more minutes before I think the survey will be switched on. So, any other questions that I can help with in the meantime?
That's it for me.
Perfect. And I think there's one more. Like there was something else that I went to. That's very cool. And I think Amy's gonna gear up the survey. I'm going to just drop in one last link for kind of that you guys were talking about Fiverr. Fiverr is definitely another great way to find freelancers of everything in general. So not just logo making, but they have tons of really quality talent up there. And another one that I like to mention sometimes is it's not a free platform per se, but it's really cheap platform if you're looking to create your own logo. It's another really super simple and easy platform to play with. It's called Shape Factory. And it's a logo maker that I've used before. And sometimes you just want to go on there not to buy it, but just for inspiration. Might be another option as well. But I'll drop that in the chat box real quick. Cool. All right. Great. Oh, and the survey is up. We love, honest feedback. We love to hear how I can improve our, my services and my teaching style.